What's going on, everybody? Happy Pack-A-Day Live. Welcome in to this Wednesday edition of Pack-A-Day Live. I guess redundant there, but appreciate you guys being here. Keeping a little extra eye on the Bucks game here as Damian misses a 3. But happy Bucks opening night to those that celebrate. Obviously, we'll be talking a ton of Packers here per usual, but always fun when the NBA season opens up and we've got some Bucks basketball going on as well. Per usual, we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can. Any super chats will go to the top of the list. We'll get to as many member Q&A questions as I can, and we'll try to sprinkle in some of the other ones. And again, we should get to a bunch of questions tonight. So should be a fun 45 minutes to an hour or so. And we'll kind of keep going as long as we got some great questions. So first of all, Jared, thank you so much for becoming a brand new YouTube member. Appreciate that a ton. Make sure to check out those memberships. We always appreciate that. We just hit over 500 members, which is beyond crazy. And I cannot thank you guys enough. So thank you a ton for that. And look at Most Hated Minnesotan coming in. Now we got 5 more members on our, way to 600 membership. So Most Hated Minnesotan, thank you so much for that. And congratulations to the 5 people who got some brand new memberships tonight. All right, Kipperoni 132 coming in at 349. You were ready today with some questions. So good evening, everyone. Hope it's been a blessed day. I was wondering what your thoughts were about Robert Saleh being spotted at Packers practice. Think just as friends or business, go Pack go. So was confirmed this is business. He is consulting with the Packers. It sounds like there's not a complete and total plan quite yet, meaning like it's not going to be something definitive every single day, every single week. It's not like a full-time job, but it does sound like Saleh is going to be doing some consulting. He was with the team today. And then it kind of sounds like maybe they're a little bit more playing it by ear as time goes on. But, first of all, this is huge for Green Bay. No two ways about it. When you get somebody that has the football acumen, IQ, knowledge of a Robert Saleh and get him to consult for the team, it's a no-brainer, right? So their friendship obviously goes way back. They were, I think it was Robert was in like the best man in Matt's wedding or vice versa, one of those things. And, to be able to pick his brain and, get some ideas on things that they can do better, different things to watch out for, trends around the league, that is going to be phenomenal. So a huge get for Green Bay there. For Robert Saleh, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Like him consulting with Green Bay and with his best friend is probably like the greatest vacation ever. For him, as he starts to get ready for next year, right? As he goes for a defensive coordinator job or tries to find another head coaching job, whether it be in college or the NFL, whatever it might be, having this experience working with Matt LaFleur, that's only going to help him, right? And now he gets to work with, one of the best young up and coming teams with Matt LaFleur, who I mean, everyone in the NFL thinks extremely highly of Matt LaFleur. So to have that connection and just to kind of pick Matt's brain and see how they're operating, like it's basically almost like an internship for Robert Saleh. Not that he needs one, but it's like almost like an internship for him of seeing all the things that Green Bay does. Meanwhile, being able to consult with a team that, again, he can legitimately help them. So this makes perfect sense for both sides. And again, for Robert Saleh, he's going to probably be able to do a ton of it from home, right? Just kind of watching tape and consulting and saying, here's what you're doing good, here's what you're not doing well, etc. And then to get to come to Green Bay every once in a while, see his best friend and work alongside of him. I mean, that's like a vacation for him. So from that side of things, from the Packers side of things, Robert Saleh side of things, it all makes perfect sense. This is a beautiful working relationship. Now, for those wondering, he is working on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if I was actually looking because I thought I tweeted it out. I must have talked about it on here, but somebody asked me initially when Robert Saleh was fired, and maybe it was on a Pack-A-Day Live or something like this, and said, well, why would they, would they really be able to bring him in as a defensive coach? Because doesn't that like kind of make Jeff Hafley kind of look, behind his back a little bit? And my response was, if you go back to what they did with Aubrey Pleasant, if you remember, Aubrey Pleasant was a defensive coordinator, if I remember correctly, for the Lions, got let go and dismissed, and Green Bay brought him in, not as a defensive consultant for Joe Barry, as an offensive consultant. And what the theme of that was basically looking over Green Bay's upcoming opponents, their game plans, seeing what Green Bay is doing, looking at their trends and tendencies, and basically getting to pick Robert Saleh's brain and say, hey, this is our game plan for this week, or this is what we're doing, or have Robert Saleh go and break down film and say, all right, if you were the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator this week, how would you be attacking us? Like, what are the holes in our game? What would you be doing? And then Matt has this unbelievably bright defensive mind that, because you can ask Jeff Hafley, but Jeff Hafley has to focus on the defense, like getting his guys ready, right? He doesn't have time to go and look at what Green Bay's doing offensively to try to pick that apart. So now Robert Saleh, unburdened from having to coach a defense, can literally just go to Matt and say, this is how I would game plan against you this week. This is the flaws that you guys showed on offense, and this is what I would be attacking over and over again. Or if I had Jacksonville's personnel, this is what I would be doing to counterbalance what you're trying to do. So to have somebody like that can give you that insight and knowledge and look at it from a defensive perspective, so invaluable, so unbelievably invaluable. So, and like Matt said today, like he doesn't want necessarily, Robert Saleh to even get interfered with the defensive side, who is doing great stuff right now. Now, that being said, I do think that you have this resource there, right? If I'm Jeff Hafley, I'm going to Matt and I'm saying, listen, I know that what you're trying to do and make it so that the defense is mine and give me that autonomy and stuff like that. But like, do you mind if I also pick his brain every once in a while? Because that's one of the great defensive minds. And I would also like to just throw some ideas past him. So my guess is at some point, hopefully that relationship develops, and Saleh and Hafley know each other as well. So I think Matt's probably saying like, hey, this is not a defensive side of things, just to make it very abundantly clear that, hey, Jeff Hafley's the guy. No questions asked. He's the defensive coordinator. There's nothing there. But if you're Jeff Hafley, it would be silly to not, throw some things by Robert Saleh if he's on the payroll, right? So to me, again, having him just in the building at all, being able to throw ideas past him, whether you're Matt LaFleur or Jeff Hafley, anything like that is going to be unbelievable. So I think it is a huge hire for Green Bay. We'll see again what long-term capacity. And when I say long-term, I do not mean past this year. I mean, we'll see if this continues through the remainder of this year, or if this is a couple week thing where they pick his brain for a little bit and say, all right, this is awesome. Thank you so much. And Saleh's like, all right, I'm going to prepare for next year now. It seems more of like a gentleman's handshake, like, hey, we'll pay you for your time when you want to do something sort of thing. But if they can get anything out of it, it is nothing but a bonus. So I love this for Green Bay. And like I said, I love it for Robert Saleh as well. I think that's going to be a super important, not super important, but I think it only helps his cause as well as he gets ready for that next coaching opportunity. Great question though. Ralph Runici, I wish Josh Jacobs can have an effect like McCaffrey did for the Niners, but we just don't have that kind of line. Well, Ralph, a couple things here. I mean, I think every team wishes they had a running back that could have the kind of impact that a Christian McCaffrey does, right? Like he is a special player. And I mean, the beautiful thing about a Christian McCaffrey, I taught, you guys have probably heard me talk about the safety position, right? Where there's like tiers of safeties. And if you can get the top tier, which is like a Xavier McKinney, who can play a true center field safety and take away the ball in range, sideline to sideline, like that's the rarest. If you can get a safety who can cover and do some man-to-man cover skills, cover wide receivers, tight ends, running backs out of the backfield, like that's a next tier. And then if you're just kind of like a too high safety, that's kind of like the lowest tier, or like, I guess the next tier. And then if you're just a box safety, that's probably the lowest. Like there's different tiers of safety, and you're going to pay the more valuable that they get. At running back, it's somewhat similar. There's less tiers, but the number one thing that you can be as a running back is a really good running back, but then B, a literal, and I don't say like, when I say a receiver out of the backfield, I don't mean he can catch checkdowns. I don't mean you can give him a swing pass. I don't mean maybe he can do a Texas route out of the backfield. I don't mean you can give him screens. I mean, you can put him in the slot and you have to guard him like a legitimate, really good slot wide receiver, like a Jaden Reed or someone like that. With Christian McCaffrey, you basically have to, when he motions out into the slot, like when Aaron Jones, like awesome, catching the ball of the backfield, screens, things like that. But when Green Bay would get him, out wide, there was a little bit where it worked really well because teams would put linebackers on him, and then it was a great mismatch. But then eventually teams are just like, all right, we're not going to put linebackers on him anymore. We're going to put a defensive back out there. And now, Jones couldn't get off of a defensive back, which is understandable. He's a running back. Christian McCaffrey, you put him out there, and if you don't have a good slot corner that can cover him, good luck, because McCaffrey's just going to beat him. So the fact that McCaffrey can be, really good running back, great catch, doing all the screen passes and the swing passes, but also you can line him up at basically wide receiver and he can run routes as well and be effective at it. That's what makes him so special. So everyone would love to have that impact. Now, as far as the offensive line for it, the offensive line generally in Green Bay tends to get better as the year goes along. So the fact that they put some of those games together like they did against Indianapolis was actually pretty encouraging to me. And I think they will ultimately, be able to run the ball better as time goes on. But I love what Josh Jacobs is doing between the tackles, getting the tough yards, keeping Green Bay, in manageable down and distances. what he's doing is super important for this team right now. And I think that it's only going to gain steam and momentum as this season goes along. The offensive line gets a better level of cohesion and starts to block a little bit better. You get into those winter months. I think we're going to see even a more impactful Josh Jacobs. But, is he going to be, the 1A running back in the league? No, probably not. But I do think there is a very good running back there. Green Bay's using them very well. And I do think we're going to see even more impact as time goes on here. Dag, Andy, how is Josh Myers doing this year? Really like how Josh Myers is playing this year, and I'm glad you asked. And also Sean Rhyan. So Sean Rhyan has been in my top 3 graded offensive players in 4 of the past 5 weeks. Now he was in the bottom 3 the other week that was in there. We talked about it with Mike Wall today. I think Mike is a little bit more skeptical. Which, hey, if we're going to break down offensive line play, and you want to take Mike Wall's word over mine, I'm gonna take Mike Wall's word over mine, right? So I think he's a slightly more skeptical. And we talked about the right guard. Although when I asked him about it today, when he said like he's a little bit more concerned about right guard, it did come across more as like maybe a little bit more concerned with Jordan Morgan than it was with Sean Rhyan. But he did talk about Rhyan as well and some of the things that he can do to improve. And to be clear, I don't think Rhyan is this unbelievable finished product or anything like that, but I do think he's trending very much in the right direction. And I will say, Adam Stenovich asked about it a couple of weeks ago, and in back-to-back weeks said that Sean Rhyan had played the best game of his career. And then, so it was, I think it was week 3 against Tennessee, and then week 4 against, it was week 3 against Tennessee, then week 4 against Minnesota, where he went, back-to-back and said those were the best games that he had ever played. So I do think he's trending in a good direction. Again, still some things he can work on, but I really like what Sean Ryan's doing. And then for Josh Myers, you guys know, if anyone's been following me for any period of time, liked him coming out, not as much as Creed Humphrey, but liked him coming out. Thought he was a late second, early third round pick. Thought he had a pretty decent rookie year. Not great, not bad, but like a decent rookie year. Was excited about him coming back in year 2. Thought year 2 and year 3 were borderline atrocious. I thought he really struggled the last 2 years. Really wanted a lot more competition for him this year, and it never really happened. And now this year, I feel like he's actually playing some pretty solid football. I have a positive grade on him so far this year. He's getting to the second level more, and he's just not having those lapses. That would always be the issue with Myers. It wasn't like you couldn't see really good play from Myers on tape in any of the last 3 years. You could find it in every game, but there would be these lapses of like a quarter almost, or like 5-10 plays a game where he would just go and it would not be anywhere near what it was the rest of the game. And that was what was so frustrating. But for me, he's eliminated those. He's playing a much more consistent brand of football, and I like what he's done so far. So I'm very happy with how Josh Myers has come out to play in 2024. So I like what both those guys are doing right now. Riley Angel, thank you so much for this. Longtime Pack-A-Day listener. First time I've been able to hop on one of these chats. Just want to say love how you've grown the channel, and think your whole team has been doing a great job. Riley, I really appreciate that. And I especially agree with the second portion of that. I cannot say enough about the entire team, from Tyler Herrick doing the thumbnails. I thought the one today with Jeff Hafley, the Chef Hafley one, just literal chef kiss. He's doing an unbelievable job. Bringing in Camille to do some of the gut reactions in her videos for the week. She's been awesome. Ross Uglum's extra content, especially the episode with him and Dusty Evely every week, is unbelievable for members. And actually the him and Dusty Evely one is available to everyone. So definitely check that one out. But all the extra content he's doing for members has been amazing. The weekly fantasy update is worth the membership in and of itself, and get him giving you fantasy and some of the potential betting advice for entertainment purposes only, or make sure to gamble responsibly, whatever one you want to do there. But he's been awesome. And then Megan coming on and doing some of the YouTube shorts. I'm really loving what she's bringing to the table, and just, again, a different flavor than some of the stuff that I do. And then each of our daily teams, from, Mark Eckel and Jason Perone and Paul Brettel today helped out with that episode, with Jason being out, Andrew, Maggie, and Kyle on Fridays, and Jen, Eli, and Matt on Saturdays. Our Sunday team with Nick and Jimmy. Mondays, obviously all of our extra guests that we have all throughout the week on the YouTube channel, from Mike Wall to Carmen to, Perry and Grant and Tyler and Nathan, and just all of them. Just unbelievable stuff. Justice, obviously. And then our Monday team with Camille and Camille, Dan, and Monty on Mondays. Then Tuesdays we've got Dusty, Steve, Sarah. Tuesdays is Jacob, and then Wednesdays is Dusty, Steve, Sarah. Like, just unbelievable people all the way around, and they're all doing a tremendous job. I love listening to all of their shows. It's all a little bit of a different flavor, and it gives you guys a different voice all throughout the week. So you're not stuck just listening to me all week. So I could not be more proud of all the work that they are doing. I hope they all go on to getting too big for Pack-A-Day, where they go on and do unbelievable stuff. And a lot of them already are or have. And, then we'll find some new people, and it'll be, kind of a opportunity for them as well. But they are all tremendous people. And as great as podcasters they are, they're even better people, which is the best part of it. But I appreciate that, Riley. Jesse Cardenas became a new YouTube member. Jesse, thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Vex. Zach Rosenblatt tweeted from 2022 to 2024, Aaron Rodgers ranks 29th of 38 eligible quarterbacks in EPA per attempt. What a move by Brian Gutekunst to move on. Wow. The writing was on the wall with Aaron, and I still think he can be a good quarterback. All right. I still think that if things go in the right direction for the Jets, maybe, we'll see what happens. Aaron was a couple things. Aaron was allergic to throwing in the middle of the field for his last time in Green Bay. He wanted a much more static offense, and that doesn't work in the modern NFL. So he wants that picture pre-snap of what everything's going on so he can, fix everything or do whatever he wants post-snap, but that doesn't work. You got to be able to generate easy looks by motion and, orbits and sweep, like just everything. You got to have all that illusion of complexity stuff that Matt does. You got to be able to use that every single game. Aaron doesn't like that. There are times where he doesn't really like turning his back on play action because he wants to be able to see the entire field. His mobility is gone. His mobility is completely shot to the point where, especially with the Jets where he has no offensive line, there is no escapability. What made Brady so, unbelievable for so long, Brady had that unique and innate ability to make slight, subtle movements in the pocket where you'd be coming full steam and he would it was almost like a Olay, and he would just let them go right past. Aaron doesn't have that same sort of trait. Because he always had the great mobility that he could dance around and do a little bit more. That's gone. So there's still a good quarterback in there somewhere. I really, truly believe that. But it was time for Green Bay to move on, especially with the exorbitant contract that he had, especially with some of the stuff where, he was clearly not super happy. And I think he needed a change of pace. And it's just a different energy. It's a different mentality. This is not taking anything away from Aaron and his unbelievable career in Green Bay. This stuff happens. And I think that's one of the things that we get so attached, and we want these legends just to finish their career. Nobody does. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, just go on and on and on the entire list. Peyton Manning, whoever you want to name, Joe Montana, nobody ends on the same team. It just doesn't happen. Jordan will play for another team eventually. Just understand that right now. Jordan is almost entirely, in all likelihood, going to play for another team someday. So let's just get that out of the way. Aaron Jones is playing with another team right now. Devontae Adams has played with a couple other teams, since. Jordy Nelson has played with another team. Both Reggie White and Charles Woodson play with teams after their time in Green Bay. Everyone's going to play for another team. Almost nobody's going to finish their career in Green Bay. Donald Driver and players like that are going to be the huge exception to the rule. So I think just if you can get past that and understand, sometimes it's just going to be time to move on and these things happen. It doesn't take away anything from his time in Green Bay, but Goody knew. And it was pretty clear and obvious too, that it was time to go in another direction. And Goody made the right move. Not only did he get somebody to take on that contract, but give a bunch of draft picks in return, which was really a masterclass by him. And it's paid huge dividends. And obviously it was time to move to Jordan as well. And it has worked out. And can you imagine, by the way, if you flip the scenario, how would Packers fans be feeling right now if this version of Jordan Love was tearing it up in, I don't know, Cleveland or, name your random state, New Orleans, etc. Can you imagine if Green Bay had traded away Jordan instead and kept Aaron, and Aaron tore his Achilles last year and you had a lost year last year, and this year, those struggles are, kind of evident, and it's clear doesn't have quite his fastball anymore. And meanwhile, Jordan's tearing it up for some other franchise and getting that franchise deal. I mean, it would have been the worst case scenario of everything. So Goody he made the right move. It was the right move at the time. It's the right move in hindsight. And it's not, again, to take anything away from Aaron, and we'll see what he can do the rest of the season in New York. They have an absolute must-win game this week. It's against the Patriots, but if they don't beat the Patriots, they have the Texans on Thursday Night Football next week. that's going to be a loss. If they don't beat the Patriots, they're going to lose to the Texans, right? And they probably lose to the Texans either way. But they will have 2 losses right before the trade deadline. Like, they would have to be sellers at that point. Like, not only can they not, like, there's no coming back. Like, they would be what, like 2-7 at that point? And I guess the AFC is crappy enough where, maybe, Aaron could convince them of like, hey, I did that run the table thing one time, I can do it again. But if they lose to the Patriots, it's just done. It's over. It's absolutely a nightmare situation. So this is a absolute must win for the Jets this week, and we'll see what he can do. But yes, very good move by Goody to move on at that time. My friend thought I was nuts when I said the NFC North team would be in the Super Bowl, so he bet me $100. He has the Commanders there. Thoughts? Listen, the Commanders are playing good football. I stand by. I think there's 7 teams that can win the Super Bowl, and only 3 of them in the NFC, and 3 of them are all in the NFC North. And, for me, it's hard for me to get to the point. And again, there's going to be some team that probably, gets better through the course of the year, but you go through it. Like, San Francisco already lost Ayuk. Like, the McCaffrey situation's weird. Deebo Samuel's a little bit beat up. Their defense is not good. Like, their defense is just flat out not good. I don't believe, like, if all the great San Fran teams that we saw couldn't get the job done, I'm struggling to see a world in which this version of the 49ers gets the job done. It's not them for me. It's not the Rams. Seattle's a fun team. I don't see them being that team that can take that step, like, to winning a Super Bowl. I just don't see it, right? Cardinals, no. You go to the NFC South, there's nobody there. Like, the Falcons, okay, they're an interesting team. Maybe they could peak at the right moment, and maybe a couple things could go right. Maybe they make a big deadline deal to get some big-time player on defense. They've been, shown to make a deal or two with some big-time players in the past. So maybe. I just personally don't see it, and I don't think Kirk has ever showed himself to be the guy that can get you to the promised land either. So it's not them. Tampa's a fun team. They just got obliterated by the Ravens, like, just obliterated. Now Chris Godwin's out for the year. Mike Evans is out for like a month. Don't see that. It's not the Panthers. It's certainly not the Saints. And it's certainly not the Panthers either. The NFC North, yes. I don't think the Bears can get to that point right now. So the other 3 teams, yes. And then the NFC East, the Giants, absolutely not. Cowboys, there's no way. I don't care what anyone says. That team's not, there's no all of a sudden upswing for that team. They might make a run towards the playoffs or something like that, but they're not making a run, through the playoffs into the Super Bowl. Could Philly or Washington make a bit of a run? I think there's too much stuff on the back end of Philly. I think the Sirianni stuff is weird. I think they ultimately kind of collapse from within. And I can't quite get there as like a true Super Bowl contender. And then you look at Washington. Washington's a really fun up-and-coming team. I think they got a lot of talent. I can't quite get there as like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. That's a young team. They're heading in the right direction. They're going to have a ton of salary cap space next year. So that like next year, yeah, I think we could be talking about that. This year, can't quite get there. So for me, Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota. And 2 of those teams, by the way, will have to go on the road the entirety of the time. And the other one might not get a bye just because the NFC North is so freaking hard. So you could end up with a tough road for any of those teams, but those are still, to me, the 3 best teams in the NFC. And, Commanders is an interesting one, but Ralph, things can change through the course of the year. Injuries will, I'm sure, morph this as time goes on, and some team will get hot. But right now, I very much like the NFC North as the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. So, of course, if you're anyone else, bet everything else against that, because who knows where things will end up. If Ryan has the right guard spot locked up, could you see Jordan Morgan getting some reps at left tackle, or will they keep Morgan at guard for next season? I talked about that with it was Paul Brettel, I think, for today's show, where I'm like, I do wonder if Sean Rhyan just outright wins that right guard spot if they do start after the bye, maybe rotating a little bit at a different position, whether that's Rasheed Walker or whatever. My guess is Morgan stays at guard for the time being. I do think next year you're still probably looking at Rasheed Walker at left tackle. I think you're looking at Sean Rhyan at left guard, Elton at center, with Sean Rhyan at right guard and Zach Tom at right tackle. I think that's your most likely lineup going into next year. I do think Jacob Monk will play a role in that as well, and he could get in that conversation. But for now, and they could bring back a Sean Rhyan, or a Josh Myers. But for now, I think that's probably the most likely. And because they probably look at guard as the most likely spot for him next year, I do think they probably keep him in that spot for the remainder of this year. Good question, though. Ian, thank you guys for all the super chats. Really appreciate this. Are we going to get an episode with both Ross and Andy? Yeah, probably at some point. We don't have anything planned right now. And it's not due to, it's just due to like timing and everything, right? So Ross has specific times of the day that, he can usually record, and he usually rips off like 3 or 4 episodes at a time sometimes. And then for me, I've kind of got the schedule like all baked in as it is. Like it's really tough for me to fit anything else into anything that I'm doing right now. So we don't have anything planned. Like closer to draft time, could there be something like that? Or could we get like a weekly live draft show with Ross and I come draft time? I think that those are definitely things that we could look into and could be pretty fun. So maybe at some point, Ian, and certainly Ross and I have worked together in the past a bunch together. So definitely could see something happening at some point. Yeah, Daryl, we went over this at the very beginning of the episode. So if you missed it, my apologies. I probably spent the first 10 minutes of the show talking about this, but the TLDR is super exciting. Love the fact that he is going to be consulting with Green Bay. Think that Matt LaFleur is going to be able to pick his brain on a variety of different things, and just having Robert Saleh try to poke holes in what Green Bay is trying to do from an offensive standpoint and tell him what he would be doing to game plan if he were going against Green Bay, I think can serve a huge purpose and will be super valuable to Matt and company. So absolutely love it. Could not be more excited about it. Nick, did half move Gary inside some Z throwback? Definitely saw some time over center. Yep, there was the one play he creeped inside. There was another play that he lined him up right over center. They did do that a little bit last. I think it was just one play, but they did it. They've been dabbling in it a little bit, but could certainly see more of it. That Jeff Hafley got Rashawn on a bunch of really advantageous looks. I actually, if I'm being honest, and I talked about this with Mike Wall as well, I think you could argue that Rashawn actually maybe should have done a little bit better with the advantageous looks that Jeff got him. But overall, I was excited to see how they got him some advantageous looks, how he was able to, get free and just kind of get after the quarterback a little bit more. So it was good to see Gary chasing after quarterbacks again. And a lot of that credit, though, goes to Jeff Hafley and how he's able to kind of scheme him to get some of those really fun looks. Jason Bravo became a new YouTube member. Jason, thank you so much for that. You guys are the absolute best. All right, let's get to some member chats here. All right. Nathan, are you surprised that Carrington Valentine is behind both Nixon and Stokes on the depth chart at outside corner? Yes, but because I think he should be ahead of Eric Stokes. I'm not stunned. I'm not shocked, but I am surprised that he is, still below Stokes at this point, because I think Stokes has had a really tough go of it. Now, to be fair, Valentine didn't look great when he's been given his opportunities. He's looked okay. I still think he's looked better than 21, but I think there'll be opportunities for Valentine the remainder of this year. Like there's going to be injuries. There's going to be games where maybe they want more of an outside corner presence. I still think he's going to be important to this team through the course of this year. I'll put it that way. And I still think Green Bay thinks highly of him. There was a lot of positive talk all throughout the offseason. So he'll get his opportunity again. When he does get that opportunity, he's going to absolutely make the most of it. Brandon, Cooper versus Walker is a prime example of choosing instincts versus just choosing elite athleticism. Give me instincts over an athlete at linebacker. Brandon, I would push back a little bit on it, saying it's not like they went instincts over athleticism. Adrian Cooper is like the most athletic linebacker, one of the most athletic linebackers I've ever seen in my life. So it's not like they chose if you were saying like, I want Jack Sanborn over Quay Walker, that would be choosing instincts over athleticism. That would be like, yep, that dude's full of instincts, but he's not the greatest athlete in the world. But like Quay's got all the athleticism, maybe not quite the instincts. That would be more the argument there. Edgerrin Cooper is a straight out freak athlete, like even a better athlete than Quay is, right? But I do think there's a little bit more instincts there with, not a little bit, there's more instincts there with Edgerrin Cooper, but even that, like, the just plain linebacker and the instinctual part of his game is the part that's still coming along for Edgerrin Cooper. Like he's only going to get better at that as time goes on. So, for Edgerrin, the freak athlete stuff is still super freaky. So I don't know that it's the exact perfect comparison there, but I do understand what you're saying, that in the number one thing I've learned about linebacker, and I've talked about this in the past, when I first started evaluating linebackers for the draft and stuff like that, I loved all of these just freaky athlete dudes, right? Miles Jack, and, Stephon Anthony's the one that I always use. Clemson dude, went to the Saints in the first round. You go watch Stephon Anthony in college, just a freak athlete flying all over the field, making big plays. So fun to watch. You watch it closely though, and he was never really asked to do the instinctual stuff. It was a lot of run and chase stuff. It's really fun to watch in college, but it doesn't always translate in the NFL. And he did not have the NFL instincts, and he found his way really into never getting a great opportunity with the Saints. Couldn't really stick there as a starting linebacker and flamed out of the league very fast. And one of the things that I've learned is at inside linebacker, instincts are king. If you have great instincts and you're a 4-7 guy, you will look like a 4-4 guy because you're reading everything so fast and getting from point A to point B because you're a step ahead. You're not sitting and waiting and like, all right, how should I react to this, or taking a false step? You know exactly what's going to happen, and you can go and shoot your shot and fire and go make a play. I will take instincts at linebacker over peak elite athleticism every single day. Now there's a limit, unbelievably so. Like you can't just have a slow ass linebacker that, has great instincts. Like at some point you have to have some athletic ability. And especially if you get matched up in coverage, you can get mismatches very quick if you're too slow at linebacker. And, one of the beautiful things about Green Bay's defense right now is all the speed that's on the field. So yes, you would love Quay to be a bit more instinctual, but man, when you're seeing the team flow to the football and Edgerrin Cooper's like a bullet there and Quay Walker's like a bullet and Javon Bullard's like a bullet, like that speed is noticeable. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but yes, one of the biggest things that I've learned from scouting linebackers over time, instincts are king. And if you don't have them, it's going to be a tough time making an impact at that position. And if you've got them, you're more often than not like TJ Edwards, another guy in Chicago. Chicago knows linebackers, right? They've known them for years, going back to Butkus and Singletary, Urlacher. Obviously now they've got a trio of them, in my opinion, not to that level, obviously, but 3 good inside linebackers, all instinctual, just studs. And that is something that they value and have valued in Chicago over time. I'm very thankful that Chicago decided that inside linebacker was going to be their lineage of greatness, and Green Bay decided quarterback was going to be their lineage of greatness. I don't want to switch those two, but Chicago knows how to find linebackers, and instincts have a large part to do with that. All right, Snoop Robbie Rob. So Evan Williams has pulled the craft and beat out the higher pick. Justice definitely didn't hype this dude up enough. Some Ducks fan he is. How has Evan changed since college? So this is fun to look back at. So let me see if I can find the I did find my scouting report. I know I tried to do this the other day and it didn't work, but I did find it now. So if I can figure out. All right, so here's my Evan Williams scouting report from before college. So this is always fun to look back at. I always recommend going back and listen to the episode, but this was my deep dive on him prior to the draft. So I'm just going to go positives, negatives, and like final thoughts. So here are my positives from Evan Williams. This was just based on college tape, right? Positives: leader on the field, multiple time captain at Fresno State, already calling things out and communicating with teammates at rookie minicamp because rookie minicamp had already started. Football instincts were positives, constantly around the football, consistently makes correct reads and run fits, takes smart angles to the ball, understand run fits and cutback lanes, quick to diagnose and trigger, natural feel for the game. Next one was aggressive and attacking, downhill and run game, talented blitzer off the edge and one-on-one against running backs, ability to lay a hit, good ball skills and zone coverage, has special teams ability, and I think he could eventually be a special teams captain, constantly rallying to the football, plays at 100 miles per hour, and does have versatility on the back end. My negatives for him: height, weight, speed, only 5'10", 200, 4'6", 40, not a super dynamic twitched up player, relied more on instincts and intangibles. Again, kind of what we just talked about. Instincts, very good to have though. Has shorter arms. He's quicker than fast. His long speed and recovery speed weren't quite as good. Faster receivers did have a propensity to run past him in college. His tackling was inconsistent. He showed the ability to hit hard, wrap up, and make impact tackles, but missed a fair share of tackles as well and did overrun plays. Had some questions if he could be the last line of defense, gave up too many explosive plays, had one play where he missed a tackle, his feet were stuck, had poor change of direction on another one. So there were a few different plays where he gave up explosives due to a variety of different reasons. Thought he struggled with ball skills and man coverage, didn't do a great job of getting his head turned around. He had a lack, this is the crazy one, had a lack of impact plays in college, only had 4 career interceptions in college and had no interceptions and only 1 forced fumble in the past 2 years combined. So that was one of the big question marks for him. And it has obviously been something that he has been great at in his time in Green Bay so far. Struggled in space, will get out muscled at the catch point, even with perfect coverage, and has versatility, but I didn't think he was a true slot and not your usual box safety type. What I thought he could bring to the Packers in 2024, competition, depth, special teams, some additional packages that specifically focused on Evan Williams. Wouldn't rule out, this is the big one, wouldn't rule out the ability to have a significant role on defense. Thought he could be a special team star. And again, good overall depth piece if needed. And I thought he was a great scheme fit and an attacking piece for Jeff Hafley. My final thoughts on him were the tape was inconsistent, but I really enjoyed watching him play. Thought he had the versatility. No issue with with him being taken early in the 4th round. He's going to play a while in this league. Think he's going to help the Packers this season. Absolutely think you can use a 3 safety look of McKinney, Bullard, and Williams. Hello. By the way, I'm like reading this for the first time. So like, this is not revisionist history here. Absolutely think you can play a 3 safety look of McKinney, Bullard, and Williams. Another different type of piece for Jeff Hafley to utilize. Going to be a leader out on the field. Felt his Fresno tape was a bit better and that they used him a bit better. Also needs to improve his tackling. Will have some limitations to his game. So that was or at least my scouting report on Evan Williams. I feel like for the most part, played out pretty well so far. Obviously better than I think anyone would have anticipated. If anyone would have anticipated this, he would not have been available in the 4th round, right? But unbelievable find from Goody and company, and he has been an absolute star. I think he's PFF's top graded rookie, if I remember correctly. So he's my 2nd graded player on defense behind only Xavier McKinney. Just an absolute stud so far. All right, I think we got a couple super chats in. Ralph, you said Saleh is insurance in case Hafley leaves next year. I don't think that they're necessarily thinking of it in that way. I think they if Hafley was in no danger whatsoever of leaving, and I think that for the most part, that's probably true. I don't think Hafley's going to be gone, but if they knew Hafley was going to be here, like if he had a ironclad contract signed in blood, like I think they would still 1,000,000% do this. I don't think it really has anything to do with that. I think that is like a bonus to this, where if all of a sudden Jeff Hafley did get a job, a head coaching job, and Saleh was still available at that point, and Saleh didn't get another head coaching job, then yes, it's a no-brainer at that point, right? I also think if Hafley got a head coaching job and Saleh didn't do this, Saleh also would have been a no-brainer because he's, again, has that relationship with Matt already. So I don't think him being here changes the potential outcome of Hafley or Saleh in any direction whatsoever. Again, I think I probably don't think Hafley's going anywhere anyway. I think he would have, Saleh would have consulted no matter what. And I think if Hafley did leave next year, Saleh would have been the 1A on Matt's wish list anyway. So I don't think it changes much, but it's not a bad thing to have him in the room just in case something like that would happen. Brandon Kells, does Valentine still have a nagging injury? I feel it's odd Stokes is getting rotational snaps over him. Safe to say Stokes isn't getting a contract, and I think Valentine still has a lot of upside. No nagging injury. I don't know if he was on the injury report today. Let's see. No, he's not even on the injury report. So no, he's not listed even limited. He is a full participant. No injury whatsoever for him. So nope, it's not that. I do agree with you. I do think that Valentine should be ahead of Stokes. Obviously, Green Bay disagrees. I thought Stokes there's a play early that it didn't look great from Stokes, but then I thought he had probably 3-4 plays of coverage where he looked really good in this game. So hopefully, there can be a turning of the corner there for Eric, but we'll see what they ultimately do. Like I said earlier, I do think Valentine still has a role on the team this year, whether it's due to injury or just getting another opportunity. And again, it's going to be ultra important that when he does get that next opportunity, he just goes and balls out and says, I need to be this outside corner. I'm too good to leave me on the bench. All right. Ben says, go Bucks. John, this game feels like a classic trap game for the Packers. Do you think it helps that we had so many opportunities for improvement against the Texans so the coaches have extra ammo this week? It does feel a little bit trappish. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I do think, when you go big game against Houston and then next week, big game against Detroit, does feel a little sandwiched in there as a little less important. I think Matt had a good message today. Jacksonville's lost a lot of one-score games. They're a lot more talented than their record indicates, which I totally agree with. And Jacksonville needs this, right? Like they need to win, a good chunk of games to get back in this thing. And the AFC is still open. After the top 4 teams in the AFC, there's this huge gap, and any team can kind of get back in this. So I think Jacksonville's going to play this really tough. I think Green Bay's going to still have their work cut out for them, but I'm hopeful that Green Bay can still go and kind of take care of business. Do we think that D. Wyatt can go on Sunday? That may give an improving pass rush an energy shot in the arm. He did say in the locker room, apparently, that he was going to be good to go this week. So that would be a really nice addition for Green Bay if, in fact, he is able to play in this one. No, you mentioned you thought that last catch from Romeo should have been called incomplete, but wasn't. How do you grade something like that as far as the catch itself goes? So I know a lot of people were upset with me and they said it's very clearly a catch. I will note, all right, that it looks different a little bit on the all 22. Let me see if I can break here. See if we can make this work. All right, let's see if we can get Romeo pulled up here. I'll answer the other part of your question as well. Let's see. Assuming it's probably the last play of his. All right, I need to change my light here for a second. Oh no, how is it not? That's frustrating. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to fix this really quick. Sorry for the silence. All right, here's what we're looking at here. All right, how do I share my screen on this thing? Present, share screen. Make sure I don't have anything unruly up on my computer here. Just kidding. There we go. All right, hopefully you guys can see this. Oh, no, you can't yet. There we go. Look at this. All right. So this is what I'm seeing from the all 22. All right. So like ball comes out right there. Like it's obviously a little bit harder. So I didn't go back and look at the like the replay when I was talking about it the other day. This is what I'm seeing from the all 22. So like, and then you can kind of see it from this angle too. So like he's bobbling it and like look at this. So there's a bobble here and then it comes out right there. Like man, does that and this angle, look at there's a bobble there and then it's out when he comes to the ground. It doesn't look like he completes it to the ground. Now, I'm assuming since everyone got very angry at me that there is a better angle of it on. Let's see, like there, like you can see, like, I don't know. Like, I get it. I guess he's like vice grip there, down, and then he gets knocked out. I don't know. That to me is close. From the all 22, it looks a lot different. And I'm sure, again, there's probably some version of this where it looks a whole heck of a lot better, that it's like everyone was very, again, mad at me that this was obviously completion. On all 22, it looks at least questionable to me at best. So anyway, breaking my rules a little bit there about showing some film there, but we'll let it slide this once. Anywho, it looks to me a little bit different, which is why I said it the way that it was. Like I said, I'm sure there's probably a review of it. Anyway, I didn't grade him negatively on this one because it was hard to tell from this angle. He would gain obviously a little bit more of a positive if there was the video evidence on the video screen that he did in fact catch that. To me, I would ultimately like him to see him complete that catch even a little bit more and, just kind of get that in and make it so that it doesn't come out. So there's no question of it, but obviously, still a big play from Romeo to get that where it's even to that point and picking up the first down there and getting it closer. So, but to the answer of your question, if there were like in a real scenario, right? Like we'll take this one aside. If Romeo Doubs got credited for a catch in the game, and they didn't get a chance to challenge it, and it was very clear that it was a drop, like night and day, like there's no question about it. Like everyone's like very clearly, Green Bay got away with that one. He would still grade as a negative on the play, despite the fact that it was ruled a completion on the field. Like just because it was ruled that way doesn't mean that's reality, right? It's not exactly what happened. So I'm going to grade, and it goes the other way too. If he got ruled incomplete, but it was very clear and obvious that he caught it, he's going to get a positive grade because he caught it, not because it was ruled incomplete. Same thing with penalties. If somebody got called for a penalty and very clearly, so I think it was last week, right? When the play where Elton Jenkins was late to snap the ball, they called a false start. And I think if you look at the penalty, they actually called it on Sean Rhyan. It was funny because I was watching that play over and over and over because it was a false start on Sean Rhyan. And I am laser focused on Sean Rhyan on this play. And I am watching an extra slow motion on every single angle. And I'm like, where does Sean Rhyan move? I cannot see Sean Rhyan move for the life of me. I'm like, what am I missing? And then I go at the left tackle. I'm like, maybe they just called it on the wrong guy. I'm like, is it on Rasheed Walker? No. Is it on the right tackle? No. Is it on the right guard? No. I'm like, what is happening? And then finally I realized that when everyone went, the quarterback, everyone and like the wide receivers, the rest of the offensive line, when they went, Elton didn't snap the ball right away. And it finally dawned on me, I'm like, all right, they had to call the false start on somebody, but it was very clearly that everyone went at the same time. Elton just hesitated when he snapped the ball, was on the wrong count, and then tried to like recover from it. So the penalty was actually, they called it on Sean Rhyan, but it was actually on Elton. I'm not going to grade Sean Rhyan down because they technically called the penalty on him. That would be a negative grade for Elton Jenkins on that play. And obviously Ryan gets a nothing on that one. But no, I'm going to evaluate it based on what actually happened on the field, not on how it was officially, called during the game. All right. Just making sure no other super chats came in here. I watched that on replay. Packers HQ, like the toe drag. Did it drag or not? Didn't see enough that it should have been overturned. Wouldn't have been overturned either, the call on the field. So yeah, obviously we just kind of went through that. Gamecock fan here, Clowney to Green Bay. I know he's more of a run defender than pass rusher these days, but curious your thoughts on if it makes sense even to entertain. I don't see that happening, Love and Football. I think it was Rob Demovsky, kind of threw that one out there as a potential possibility on ESPN today. I think they're going to be making smaller incremental upgrades, if anything, but I do think there's a world in which a LVN plus maybe some picks for an edge rusher kind of makes some sense. That would be one where I'd be, and I know that they'd be selling LVN for, kind of pennies on the dollar right now. But if some team was willing to take maybe a flyer on LVN's upside and you could get an impact edge rusher right now, it kind of to me makes sense because you're not going to get anything for Preston. Rashawn's not going anywhere. Enigbari is a really nice like fourth player, right? Like you just kind of need that one more impact guy. So if you could do an LVN deal for some type of legitimate edge rusher on the outside, like whoever that wants to be. And I'm not saying again that I want to give up on LVN or anything like that. I'm just saying like if you could make something like that work where maybe you get a guy that's on like a 2-year deal anyway this year and next year, and he can help you for both of these years where Green Bay's ready to compete right now, and LVN might take another 2 years before he's ready, and then you've got to give him a big contract even if he does show out in that last year. I would be willing to entertain that if I were the Packers, of saying like, hey, we'll give you this young former first round pick that has a lot of upside, is still in the rotation, still making plays, but is going to need some runway to grow and needs more snaps to grow. Is there a team out there that could say like a Giants or a Panthers or a whomever, Raiders, etc., that would say, yeah, we'll entertain that idea? And if so, I would be open to it. Do I think Green Bay does it? No, I don't think there's any chance Green Bay does that. I don't think they're in the business of giving up on first round picks, and they're probably in the right to think that way, by the way. I would consider it, not necessarily for Clowney. I don't know that I would necessarily do that, but if they wanted to get into the market for a big time pass rusher and an LVN could be used as a means to kind of get there, wouldn't hate the idea, but definitely don't see anything like that necessarily happening. All right. When are we getting an episode with Ross and Andy? We talked about that. Are your thoughts on how this Ford situation seems much ado about nothing? Can you explain what the logic might have been with Goody Insurance? I'm assuming you mean the Jonathan Ford situation. So it makes all the sense in the world. How it works is, so the Packers designated Jonathan Ford as one of their players to return. When you don't have to do it when you initially place a player on IR, unless you're doing it prior to the cut downs, in which case, if you put a player on IR prior to the start of the season and designate them to return, you have to do it at that time. And it does count as one of your ones that you get to designate for return. So they did it prior to the season, probably thinking like by the time Jonathan Ford comes back, we're probably going to be dealing with injuries. Somebody else will go on IR. We can bring Ford back and it'll just make sense. It gives us that optionality to be able to do that at that time. Well, they got to the point where they activated Jonathan Ford from injury. It looked like he was ready to go a couple weeks ago. He was practicing in full. They didn't activate him. And now the 21-day window was done and over with. At the end of the 21-day window, if you do not activate him to the active roster, he reverts back to IR. You can't bring him back for the remainder of the year. The other issue is you can't keep players on IR that aren't hurt. So they would have to release him. There would usually be an injury settlement in that situation. But since Ford is no longer injured and he's good to go, it would probably just be a handshake, clean release. You're free to go anywhere. And you can sign with any other team. We're not going to pay you an injury settlement. You're free to play as soon as this week because you're healthy. And you might say, well, why didn't they just do that then? They could have released him off of IR and then just brought him back on the practice squad. if you release somebody off of IR, I believe there's like a 3-week rule, 6-week rule. There's some rule that you cannot sign back with the team that you were on for it's like 3 to 6 weeks after they would be cleared to play. So what happens in those scenarios, and it happened with Tyler Goodson this way, and it happened with Lou Nichols this way, where they were injured on IR and Green Bay had to release those players off of IR. And I am sure Green Bay would have loved to have had them, each of them, back on the practice squad, but they couldn't because there's that rule that once you release someone off of IR, you have to wait a certain period of time to bring them back. And it gives all the other teams an advantage to bring them back or bring them in sooner. Nichols went to some teams, I think the Eagles practice squad, if memory serves. Goodson went to the Colts practice squad, and they lost out on both of those players. So if Jonathan Ford would have been released from injured reserve, every other team would have got the ability to bring him to the practice squad sooner. And Jonathan Ford's not going to say like, well, I'll wait the 3 or 6 weeks or whatever it is for the Packers. Like, he wants that check, right? So some other team is going to give him a practice squad spot, and Green Bay just loses him. So by releasing Matt Orzik, who they knew was not going to go anywhere, by releasing Matt Orzik, bringing him back to the active roster off of IR and putting him on the active roster for a day, and then releasing Jonathan Ford, bringing back Orzik, who, again, there was no chance he was going to go anywhere. They now give themselves, if he does not get claimed off of waivers, which I would be stunned if he gets claimed off of waivers, but assuming he doesn't get claimed, then the Green Bay will have the same right as everyone else to bring him back to the practice squad. So now they have that open practice squad spot. They can put him on there, and they still have the ability to utilize him at some point this year if they need him. Because they put a 7th round pick and 3 years into this guy. So they've put in a decent investment. And do I think that Goody would lose any sleep if some other team signed Jonathan Ford, or if he went to another team? No, I think it's probably not ever going to really be anything where he amounts to some impact player for this defense. But when you invest a 7th round pick in 3 years into a player and you think he can play, like, I'd rather have him on the practice squad than not on the practice squad. And he's probably better than, a lot of the other players on the practice squad. Remember, he made the initial 53 last year, and then they had to do some roster gymnastics, and he got released and put on the practice squad at that point. But he's very clear, like, the 54th or 55th player on their team. Like, he's right there. And if there isn't any injury at defensive tackle, he would be the guy that they would go with. So makes all the sense in the world to do the exact gymnastics that Goody did to make it so that they can get him back in the practice squad rather than losing him for nothing to some other team and some other team's practice squad. So really liked what Goody did in that situation. Andy today is a great example why it's easy to subscribe. Mike Wall joking that after several picks when playing with Favre that he'd call the 2-go and this chat, much less the grades blog. A+, Dan, I appreciate that a ton. And yes, members obviously already have access to the Mike Wall video. It's just another reason to sign up. You get access early, but Mike is great to talk to as always, and getting to pick his brain and just kind of see what he's thinking it's invaluable to me every single week. All right. Do you feel like the coming game is a trap game? We talked about that a little bit. I think we did get a super chat in, by the way. Reese's fun fact, Jordan Love is tied for second in passing touchdowns per start all time. He's tied with Aaron Rodgers, 2.04 touchdowns per game. That's pretty impressive. He's been unbelievable. He's been really, really fun to watch. King Kermit, any personal stories or headlines, so to speak, you're looking at this week? Maybe tearing up Savage versus being torn up because of him. The spoiler alert, the episode for tomorrow with Mark Eckel and Paul Brettel on the audio side is titled, quote, "Time to Pick on Darnell Savage and the Jaguars secondary." So that is the title for tomorrow's episode. So there is absolutely a little bit of that, King Kermit. We have a great O-line. Jacobs is having a great start to this year. We need to feed him, and we need to commit to his setting up play action. I talked to Aaron Nagler about this. So tomorrow for members, Aaron Nagler and I preview the Jaguars game. I talked exactly about this, where I think this needs to be a Josh Jacobs game. And I'd almost like them to go into this game with a similar mentality of that Colts game and say to the offensive line, you guys need to go out and run through this team. Like, use Jordan when you need to. And if you need to course correct through the course of the game, great. You're going to have some mismatches in the secondary. But I said this exact thing to Aaron. Remember back when the Packers played against the Raiders and Josh Jacobs, and we as Packer fans were like, oh my God, we're going to have to go against Josh Jacobs this week. Like that's like, I don't want to have to go against that guy. Like, I want other teams to start feeling that way when they play Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. I want them to feel like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. I don't want to have to go and play against that guy for a full game because he's going to tear us apart. And Josh Jacobs has been, to me, as advertised. I think the offensive line can be a little bit better. And I want to see this offensive line and Josh Jacobs start running through some faces. And if like that's to me is the next step on offense. If you want to hit that next evolution of offense where they're just putting up 40 per game, and we're seeing it right now. Look what Baltimore did this past week. It starts with running the football. Get that dude and Josh Jacobs running the football physically with a tough-nosed offensive line. You're screwed. You're just absolutely screwed. Because now you're going to get into some disadvantageous looks where you're going to get one-on-one looks on the outside, and Green Bay's just going to win those all day long. And Jordan's going to hit big-time plays down the field. So I do want to see this running game take the next step. I think this game against Jacksonville would be a great time to do that. Krista, good to see you. AJ Dillon on the Cheesehead TV radio show yesterday was awesome. A must watch. I'll have to check that out. Dylan's always a really good listen. AJ has me blocked on Twitter, so I have a feeling that that's probably not going to happen anytime in the near future. But not sure why. I've always had good interactions with AJ. He's an awesome dude. Always rooting for him. But yeah, by the way, like these things happen. Like sometime when I have to give grades out every week, some players don't like the grades, or sometimes just they don't even want to see them right or whatever. So it definitely happens. It's part of the beast. Part of the business is sometimes players aren't going to like what you have to say about them. No harm, no foul. I'm cheering all these guys on. I hope Dylan, gets back healthy and tears it up next year, whether that's with Green Bay or another team. So still rooting him on, and I would still love to talk to him at any point. Packers have been smart at letting players go early. In general, yes, I would very much agree with that. Ben, depending on how some games go, I think Washington can win the NFC East and either Cowboys or Eagles make the playoffs, but I don't think Washington would go far in the playoffs. They're a fun team. And I do think there's a good chance that they could win the NFC East. Absolutely. I agree with you there. Preston, thank you for the chat. If the Giannis demands a trade because we fall short in the playoffs, what do you think they'd get back? What would they trade Dame as well? Yeah, I think if that did happen, and I don't think that's going to happen, by the way, I think Giannis will still be on the team next year and hopefully for next few years and beyond. But I do think that they would probably go with a little bit of a reset in that situation and probably trade away, because obviously, Lopez is a free agent, if I remember correctly, next year. And then I think they would probably trade Dame and Giannis simultaneously. They would go super young. And I think the Thunder would be the first team I would call about Giannis because they just have a stockpile of young players and draft picks and salaries that you could match. So I'm probably calling the Thunder first, trying to get something really big in return. I don't know if you could get Jalen Williams in return, but like that would be, kind of the apple of my eye, someone like that with a stockpile of draft picks and, probably need a veteran player to match salaries a little bit as well. But I would probably start there. And then Dame, again, highest bidder. And you just start with a really young, fun team that is going to be built around really those two massive trade packages that you would get in return for Dame and Giannis in that situation. Probably look to see if you can trade Chris at that point. Again, Lopez is a free agent. You get off of all those salaries and then you see if you can maybe, kind of build things back up from scratch. So hopefully it doesn't have to go in that direction, but I do think they would go with a pretty aggressive rebuild if that did end up being the case. Packers talent evaluation is unbelievable. They do a really, really good job. Ben, is this good or bad? I haven't had the opportunity. Portis doing Portis things is either an A or an F. There is no in between. Portis doing Portis things is either going like he scored 25 points and has 12 rebounds and everyone's cheering Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. And he's got a technical foul and everyone's just in love with the dude and he's amazing. Or he's like 0 for 15 and doesn't stop shooting and can't get a rebound and isn't defending anyone. And there's no in between. Those are the two Bobby Portis games. They're the only ones that exist. And there's no in between. There's absolutely no in between. He's either the favorite player or the most hated player. And that's just what it is. And you have no idea which one's going to show up on any given game. So I don't know if Portis doing Portis things is the A or the F version, but I think they're up by double digits right now. So hopefully it's the A version. I've loved everything so far from Bullard and Evan Williams, who seems well worth the trade up on the third day of the draft. Any word on the rehab and progress of the other rookie safety, Katana Ladapo? No rehab, no anything like that. He's on the team. He's on the active roster. He's been inactive, I think, for almost every game. I think maybe there was 1 or 2 games where he got in on teams, but he's just buried, right? Like they're already trying to figure out, like Javon Bullard got 20 some snaps this week. Like they're trying to figure out ways to get Williams and Bullard and McKinney as many snaps as possible. There are just there's no world in which you can get another safety on the field right now. So he's just buried. There's no other way around it. And it's tough for him to get active even as the fourth safety because Zane Anderson is a core special teamer. So no injury issue, nothing like that. This is just basically going to be a redshirt season for Oladapo. Packers usually wilt in the Florida heat and humidity. What's the weather going to be like? Let's look it up. All right, so Sunday in Jacksonville is 84 and sunny. So not brutal, like 84, just 84 here recently in Green Bay, like a couple weeks ago, 82 or whatever. I think they'll do all right with that. And at noon, it's only like 80. It's like 80 at kickoff, 78 to 80 at kickoff. That's doable. That's very workable. That should be just fine. Do you believe the NFC North can be undefeated outside the division for a fifth consecutive week? This last month has been impressive. I think they can. Like, if you look at the matchups this week, like in all likelihood, at least one of them probably loses, right? And hopefully it's just not Green Bay. But Minnesota plays the Rams tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. Vikings are favored. Packers only favored by 4 now. That is crazy. It's just, I hate that. Packers favored by 4 against Jacksonville. Detroit favored by 11 against Tennessee. And Chicago is favored by 3 against Washington. So all 4 teams are favored. The Commanders likely not going to have Jaden Daniels this week. The Lions should just absolutely boat race the Titans. We'll see if Vikings can get through the Rams tomorrow. And hopefully Green Bay doesn't have a setback against Jacksonville. But yeah, there's a real world in which they go 4-0 again this week, which would be crazy. Is there any legal repercussion to you showing film like an all 22 rule of some sort? Nothing like that. It's just, it could, like, theoretically, anytime you show like NFL stuff, it could theoretically be like copyrighted or whatever. So I'm not trying to get any copyright hits or anything like that on the channel. We have a 3-4 D line playing a 4-3. I disagree with that. New York G said, totally disagree with that. And I think most people were saying last year, like, oh, they need to be playing a 4-3. Why aren't they playing a 4-3? So I think they have absolutely everything they need to play 4-3, and they're playing good defense right now. So I think their pass rush can still be better. Yes. Do I hope it's better? Yes. But they don't have wrong personnel for the grouping whatsoever. No, I'm crazy, but the Saints are so far upside down on cap. So LVN in a second for Chase Young. I'm not a big Chase Young guy. I certainly would not do that. No, I would not give up that much for Chase Young. I probably wouldn't give up LVN for Chase Young. So I'm just not a big Chase Young believer. Austin, LVN in a second for Chase is a horrible idea. I would generally agree with that. No thanks, Austin. Chase Young has proved to be quite overrated. Yeah, we're on the same page here. Chase is a 1-year deal and is mid as bleep. If LVN is moved, it'll be for a much more impactful player. I would tend to agree with all of that. Don't give up on LVN yet. I would tend to agree with that as well. I'm just saying I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I hope that he continues to find go in the right direction and play well. So the Savage comment proved worth it. Let's go. Very much so. No hate to Savage. I'm still rooting for his development to keep up. Yeah, I was never a big Savage guy. Struggled a lot in Green Bay. I know everyone, like, one of the biggest things I hated was, like, everyone was like, he just needs to play in the slot. If they play him in the slot, he's going to tear it up. He's playing in the slot in Jacksonville right now. He looks terrible. Like, he just didn't have it. Just wasn't there. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of really good traits there. He made some big plays for Green Bay. He should have had that pick in San Fran last year. Would have completely changed, I think, the outcome of that game. So frustrating. Andy, he was the guy who missed on the tackle of McCaffrey in the open field, right? Just a brutal game from Darnell Savage. Absolutely brutal. Now it's for the best that Green Bay went in a different direction and now has 3 stud safeties that they get to work with week in and week out. I'm not giving up on LVN, just not against the idea of getting a truly productive rusher for the next couple of years. We're on agreement there. King Kermit thought TJ Slayton might flourish in a scheme that values penetration, particularly in a salary year. Is he doing more on a per play basis than I'm seeing as a layman? No, he's not getting a ton of snaps, probably like 16 to 18 snaps per game, mostly as a run defender. And it's the same sort of TJ Slayton experience that we've always had. It's not bad. It's not great. He's there. He's eating some blocks every now and again. Every once in a while, he gets moved off his spot. Every once in a while, he makes a flash play. That's just TJ Slayton. Just who he is. He'll probably get like a 2-year, $10 million, 2-year, $12 million deal from some team next year would be my guess. He's fine. He's a rotational defensive tackle. It's kind of what you're going to get from him. Have you had Ken Ingles on as a guest? Your grading and his salary cap expertise would be a great combo, particularly during key GM focus periods of the year. Ken and I have talked about it, of him coming on. I I can't remember if he ever actually got on. There was at least one time where I know he was all set to come on, and then he had something come up, or got sick, or I got sick, or something happened. So I know there was a couple times, at least once, if not twice, where it was supposed to happen / going to happen, and then it just didn't happen. So yeah, I certainly would be open to it at some point. It hasn't come to fruition so far for whatever reason, but maybe at some point. What position group on the Packers is playing better than you expected? What group could you see regressing? I don't know about regressing, but I think edge and defensive line in general are playing worse than I would have expected them to. I will say running back is doing better than I expected. Not the Josh Jacobs portion, but just what Emmanuel Wilson is doing, and even Chris Brooks coming in. And I think Marshawn Lloyd's still going to be an impact player when he comes in. So that's probably one that I'm a little bit more bullish on than maybe I even was going into the year. I think for the most part, everything else has been kind of as expected. So I should say maybe offensive line too, just because I think Josh Myers and Sean Rhyan, Josh Myers and Sean Rhyan are playing a little bit better than I probably would have expected. So either interior offensive line and or running back. I'll actually go interior offensive line. If I could say one group, I'll say Jenkins, Myers, Ryan playing better than I expected. Probably defensive line / defensive end playing worse than I expected. Hear me out. Katana is a Cowboys-esque style linebacker just because he's a dog. I think there is something there to that, and I wouldn't hate that, King Kermit. I still don't think he gets on the field because Green Bay's figuring out how to get all their linebackers on the field already. But I would not be shocked if at some point a move to linebacker is not on in the cards for Katana at some point. As an original Central Floridian, I can't handle even that anymore. Man, I love the heat. Sign me up for 88 every single day. I will take it. I sign me up for warm weather. I was not meant for Green Bay. I was meant for the hot, humid weather for sure. All right. Feel bad for Savage, fast runner, and in interviews seemed like a good dude. Yeah, no, he was always a good dude. I don't think there's any issue there. Just couldn't ever quite put it all together. Did have a big pick six against Dak, right? That was a huge play. Probably the biggest play of his career in Green Bay. There's a reason I'm not a GM, but seriously, thanks for these lives and all the content. Go Pack, go. Austin, you're the best. Now, hey, there's no stupid question or stupid comment here. We're all here to talk sports, and trust me, you guys know I get stuff wrong. It happens. We're all good. I've got stuff wrong in the past. I will get stuff wrong again. So who knows? Maybe Green Bay trades for Chase Young somehow, and he just has an unbelievable rest of the year. Who knows? Anything can happen at this point. Football's weird. Nobody is a perfect prognosticator of everything, and everyone has their players that they like and their own, sort of history with guys. So all good. Tom Walker, Ryan Myers. How many can the Packers realistically sign to a second contract? Who could be prioritized? I don't think Myers will get re-signed just because they have so many options on the interior. I think Tom will absolutely get re-signed. And my guess is one of either Walker or Ryan will be back. That'd be my guess, but they could sign all of them if they wanted to. They can make it work. But my guess is no Myers, yes, Tom, and then Walker and Ryan are a little bit more up in the air. Probably one, maybe both. That's where I would go. Thanks, Andy. Great stuff. Have a great night, everyone. Go Pack, go. You are more than welcome. Brett, I figured the rookies would have had flashes of good play, but they are killing. Wilson has been killing it in my eyes. Assuming you mean Eric Wilson, Emmanuel Wilson, either of them. They're both playing really good football right now. The rookie class is very good once again. Eli, what could Malik get in a deal? I think probably a conditional 5th rounder that could move up to a 4th, something like that maybe would be my guess. I still think most teams are going to say, yeah, he played great in those 2 games, but that was Matt LaFleur being magic is probably what my guess is. And he's on a 1-year deal left, struggled mightily in Tennessee. Only went for a 7th round pick from Green Bay, which is considered a super late 7th round pick. I don't think the 2 games changed people's minds that much. Even going from a 7th to a conditional 5th that could move to a 4th is a pretty big jump for a player just by 2 games, right? So I think probably something like that. He probably just has more value to Green Bay at that point. Anything coming from that Mina Kimes Twitter interaction? We'll have to wait and see. Whiskey the Gathering, we will have to wait and see. Football is the best sports league in the world. No arguments for me. Let's see. Owens was Goff's pick 6 Detroit on Thanksgiving. That makes sense. King Kermit, me and Mina just had a interaction on Twitter is what he's referencing. So we'll see if something comes of that at some point, maybe. Thanks for feeding our addiction, Andy. Here's hoping the AI stays true. We're all cheering on the AI at this point, at least when it comes to the simulation, right? Everything else, we'll have to see what AI brings, but for the simulation, we're all cheering it on. What impact do you see Marshawn Lloyd having when he gets back? I think he'll have to work his way back in the rotation, prove he's getting the blitz pickups right and things like that. But you're going to have somebody that's super talented with fresh legs coming in at the right time at the end of the year. I think they'll find a way to make him an impactful player. I really, really do. Eli, what was your original opinion on the LVN pick? My original opinion was that it was super predictable. He was like the most Packers-y Packer that ever Packered. It was just clearly somebody that they were going to love in the draft process, and definitely predicted that one correctly. Not that it was hard for anyone to potentially predict that one. Definitely wanted Christian Gonzalez. No question about that. Thought LVN had a ton of upside. No issue with the pick at the time whatsoever. Yeah, I thought he had all the right traits to be a really good player. Even coming in right away in rookie minicamp, he looked the part. But, football is a game where you have to marry the freak athletic skills with learning the technical traits. And for right now, LVN as a pass rusher has a long way to go from a technical prowess standpoint of mastering the skill sets that are needed to rush the passer. He's got no move to go to. It's basically playing patty cake and then trying to bull rush. It's not good enough. He's got to improve on it. Green Bay knows he has to improve on it. He's got to play more snaps and figure out something, but great effort. Unbelievable athleticism. He's going to get some of those cleanup sacks, those effort sacks that'll always be there for him. But if he wants to be a big time player in this league, he's got to develop a pass rush plan, get more technical. I do appreciate him as a run defender. I think he's pretty darn good at that, but still a ways to go in his development to get anywhere near the value that Green Bay put into him as a top 15 pick. Neil, just look up Pack-A-Day Podcast Artificial Intelligence on the YouTube channel and the video will come up. Thanks for the stream. Keep up the great work. What's the latest Luigi's pizza you had? The latest I had was a sausage and pepperoni. It was really good. The fresh dough one. Always a good pizza with Luigi's. Jair and Gonzalez would have been sick. King Kermit would have been sick. Do you think Goot could be aggressive in the draft due to it being in Green Bay and being more motivated to excite fans? No. This is a long-term approach, GM. He's not going to look at the short term and give players or the fans a pop on draft day, because everyone's going to rather have an impact player, that they get the pick right more than to be excited at the time. So no, he'll take his normal approach on it. Do I have to go to Wisconsin's just to try a Luigi's pizza at some point? Well, you don't have to go to Wisconsin. They are in, let's see here. Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Michigan, and Illinois. So you have to go to one of those areas to try it, but Wisconsin's always the best one of those. So you could do that. I put Luigi's in the blender and just sip on the pepperoni all day. Can't confirm if that's good, nor do I want to try if that's good, but Jay Western, to each their own. On that note, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to go finish watching the rest of this Bucs game. Up 15, 8:30 to go in the third quarter, I should say. Giannis is at 13 points and Dame just got the rebound. So yeah, should be a good rest of this game. Hopefully Green Bay can just blow them out of the water, or Green Bay, Milwaukee can just blow them out of the water. That'd be nice. Hopefully no big comeback here from Philly. I don't want to see that as they, miss a wide open three. All right. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for being who you are and making Pack-A-Day part of your daily routine or just showing up. It's the absolute best. Thank you for letting me do what I do. I will see you guys all very soon. Happy hour on Friday, 4 p.m. We'll do pregame and postgame shows on Sunday. So plenty of live opportunities this week, and be back tomorrow morning with Mike Wall. See you guys all soon. Until next time. And as always, go Pack, go.